Hello, hey boomer listeners. So good to see you. And I am your host, Wendy Green. And if this is your first time joining us with Hey Boomer, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. I'd love to see you say hello in the chat so that we know that you're here and we can all make you feel welcome. I just want to let you know Hey Boomer is a thoughtful, intelligent, entertaining show with conversations with thought leaders, scientists, authors, entertainers, and we focus on staying engaged with life, making a difference, and enhancing our purpose as we age. And today we're going to be talking about creativity. And so, do you remember when we were younger and we thought creativity meant getting out a poster board and some glue and lots of glitter and little pieces of paper and making a big mess? And oh, it was gorgeous when we finished, right? That's when creativity didn't have any boundaries or limits for us. And I think my creativity showed up primarily as ideas. I never saw myself as very artistic, but I had lots of ideas and I would bring them to fruition in different ways. But I did experiment with some creative artistic kind of pursuits. I know when my kids were younger, I got into making their Halloween costumes. Much to their dismay, they really wanted those store-bought costumes, and I thought what I created was so cute. But eventually I gave in and they had those traditional store-bought costumes. In 2005, I actually bought a franchise called Kids Art, which was an art enrichment program we did in the schools. And I learned so much then about drawing and how to see shapes and see more like an artist would see, breaking things down. And that was a great learning opportunity for me. I had some wonderful teachers that worked for me and learned a lot from them. And we created some really cool art projects for that. And a few years ago, I did a spoken word poetry class with the artist Glennis Redman. And that was a stretch, and yet it was probably one of my most creative times because I think words express ideas. And so for me, when I see creativity as ideas, that fit well for me. So I'd be interested in knowing, those of you who are saying hello so far, how do you express your creativity? You know, is it cooking? Is it painting? Is it drawing? Is it writing? Because creativity doesn't have to be just that we are, functional artists that make things with paint or photography or clay. Creativity comes in many, many forms. So share with us how you express your creativity as we go through this conversation. Our guest today, is Harold Shapiro. And Harold is a true artist and a creator. He uses photography and music to share his creative side, both professionally and in ways that help people in need. And so our discussion today is going to be fun and insightful about how Harold has used his creativity to help himself and others throughout this time of the pandemic. Hi, hides, crafts of all kinds. You do love them all. You know how sometimes we'll say to our friends, did you hear last week's podcast on Hey Boomer? And then you want to have a great conversation about it? Well, if your friends haven't heard it, that's because they haven't subscribed. So go ahead and ask them to subscribe. Send them to the Hey Boomer website, heyboomer.biz. Ask them to subscribe to the show so they know when it's on and who's going to be on. And also ask them to follow us on the Facebook page so that they will be able to see the show live and engage in conversation with us. So then you'll have some great conversations about what they saw last week. And let me bring Harold on and introduce you to him. Hi, Harold.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Harold Shapiro is a well-known photographer and respected teacher in the New Haven, Connecticut area. He has been a full-time professional photographer for nearly 40 years. Wow. And he's been teaching since 1984. And one of Harold's biggest clients has been Yale University, where he has been a photographer in the Yale Law School, the School of Music, the School of Medicine, the School of Management, and the Yale Health Center. He graduated from the New England School of Photography with honors in color and portraiture. Harold has another passion, and that is volunteering. And so he received the American Hospital Association Volunteer Award for his work playing music for patients at Yale New Haven Hospital. He has helped adults with Down's syndrome explore their world through photography and received the Ginger Calhoun Volunteer Service Award for that work. And so, as you can see, Harold has used his work to help people in need, and he has continued to do that. In March of 2020, y'all know what happened then, right? The pandemic, boom, everything shut down. Harold had an art exhibit set up, ready to go, of some very special photographs, and doors closed, locked. Nobody could go in, including Harold. He couldn't even get his work out of there. So what do you do when you're a creative person, a person who likes to help others, but close contact is now out of the question? What do you do? Well, let's ask Harold. What do you do, Harold? You take us back to March 2020 and that exhibit.
Right. So I had won a grant in 2019 for my photographs of luminous instruments, photographs that I had been working on for a long time that use movement and the photographs to try to express the feeling of music in the instrument photographs. So I had this exhibit planned at the school that I've been teaching at for many years, the Creative Arts Workshop in New Haven. And we had every detail planned. We had a big opening with hundreds of people coming and visitors from senior centers, from schools of music, all over the place. And every day in the first week of March 2020, every day something, we couldn't have food. Okay. We couldn't have the opening the next day. Then, the school is closing. So on March 13th, the school closed. So only about 3 people actually saw the exhibit in the gallery. Luckily, the window to the gallery was visible. So the exhibit was up for almost 6 months. And people could see it from the street, but because it was COVID, not that many people were even going out. But it was fine. I mean, we weren't sick. We were okay. But my work also had just totally stopped. So all of my professional work was all canceled. Everything was canceled for practically a whole year.
Yeah.
So in mid-March, a couple days later, I said to my wife, Margie, I said, I need to do something related to this. So I started posting, and I said, I call it crisis creativity. Crisis creativity is but one of my 3 responses to the virus, and it's my visual arts response. And so I've been posting on Facebook and now Instagram every day. So it's nearly 600 posts that I've created. And I also write about the images that I'm creating. So it's been a wonderful way for me to stay connected with people and also to really have a chance to be creative at a level that I haven't been able to in my adult life.
So Harold, the photographs that you're putting up on Facebook, do you want to share some of those and kind of give us a little insight into what goes into making those?
Sure. Did you want to connect to my Facebook page?
I will share it right now. How
That's
about that?
great.
So who are those kittens?
So the center one is one of our cats, and with his brothers when they were young.
Oh, so cute. All right, so let's see. Let's go down here.
So there's today's post. And today I wrote about needing fun. We all need fun in our lives. And so I put some quotes about laughter in my actual written part of the post. But the image is a robot, a toy robot I found in a thrift store just a few days ago, and a very odd looking thing, as you can see. And I was in love with it instantly and knew that it would be fun, just a fun, odd, creative thing to composite into another picture.
So is this just one other picture of the building and the bridge?
So it's actually it's just three pictures. So this is the Dumbo area in Brooklyn, down under the Brooklyn Bridge. And there's also the seagull was added. The helicopter actually was there in the picture.
Okay.
So this is a more lighthearted one. So some of them are more serious, some are on a little bit on the surrealist side. So this is kind of inspired by the wonderful Belgian artist Rene Magritte, who I'm sure many of you have seen his work, and he was a wonderful surrealist artist in the early 20th century. And just a great thing. And so a friend had a pile of cameras that she wanted me to look at, and I opened this camera, and the bellows to the camera was not attached to the lens. So I instantly thought, oh, I can put something in there. I said, so clouds came right to mind.
Huh.
So it's always fun to really think of something that I could percolate the idea and turn it into something special.
Yeah, let's look at a couple more. This one's pretty.
So I've been waking up for sunrise, and luckily I live just about 15 minutes away from Long Island Sound. And so there's some really beautiful spots for sunrises right on the water. And one of my specialties is night photography. So I've been doing night photography since 1979 and teaching it also for many, many years. And so usually what I do is I add some lighting in the foreground so that it's not just all a silhouette in the front. So that's why there's some light on the trees in the foreground. Otherwise, they would have been pitch black.
Okay, so this one is not as what do you call it, put together with all these different images like the other ones. This is more the lighting techniques that you used on this.
Exactly. So this is a single image, but just with some special lighting that people don't normally add in a sunrise picture.
All right. And then this one is so crazy. Tell me about this one.
So this summer, my family got together, and one day I said to them, oh, I want to take some close-ups of your eyes. And everyone was very willing. And so I started doing close-ups, real serious close-ups of their eyes and lighting them very carefully. And so I've had several, fun images with their eyes. And so this one, I really didn't know what I was going to do with it. I thought maybe I would put stars in the iris of the eye. I wasn't sure. And then all of a sudden I had this dog picture pop into my mind. And so that's how it ended up being in there as well.
Well, you definitely, yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, you definitely have shown a lot of creativity, and y'all can see if you'd like to subscribe to Harold's page, because I think he's on a roll. He's going to keep going. So you can go to Facebook, Harold Shapiro Photo, and subscribe, follow his page so that you can keep up with all of the new and older images that he's been creating.
Great. So my other two responses to the virus have been I've done about 300 concerts for people on Zoom and FaceTime for principally at first elderly and lonely friends and relatives and people I didn't know. And I call these flutograms. And the flutograms, I play actually several woodwind instruments, flute, clarinet, sax, and bassoon, but I would primarily play the flute for things like this. And so this, when the virus struck, I've been actually volunteering at Yale New Haven Hospital for 30 years, since 1989, actually. And I couldn't go to the hospital, obviously. Playing the flute at the hospital during a viral pandemic was not a good idea. So I started doing these concerts, and it's been a great way to connect with people and to learn new things. One of the things I studied was right after the George Floyd tragedy, I went to and photographed 2 Black Lives Matter protests, and those photographs are in my posts. I started studying African American spirituals and their relationship to what was going on, and I discovered this wonderful person. He was very famous in his time and not as well known as he should be, Harry T. Burleigh, Burleigh. He was influential in bringing the spiritual into the concert hall, and he actually taught Antonin Dvorak, about the spirituals. So I want to tell you a little story about that. So Harry Burleigh's grandfather had been enslaved and taught Harry, when he was young, the spirituals. In the 1890s, Antonin Dvorak, the wonderful Czechoslovakian composer, was living in New York, in Manhattan, and running a school, a conservatory. Harry Burleigh came to that school to study as a baritone, and he sang the spirituals for Dvorak. And Dvorak even included a snippet from one spiritual in his masterpiece, his Ninth Symphony, the Symphony from the New World. So I'm going to play on my flute the little excerpt from the symphony, and then I'll play the spiritual from where it came.
Okay. This was a surprise, a special little concert.
So this is Dvorak. And here's the spiritual that it came from.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you.
And that's Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, a very beautiful spiritual. And the spirituals often have a special code in them. We think of them as they mean different things to the people who were enslaved and to the owners of the plantations. For instance, Go Down Moses. Moses actually referred to Harriet Tubman, who they thought would be coming to help save them and get them in Underground Railroad to safety.
Huh. I didn't know that. So tell the flutograms. So you started those at the same time you started your photographs?
Exactly.
And how did you find the people that you were going to call and share the music with?
Well, my wife and I have a pretty big range of friends and relatives that we started with, and then they would suggest other people, and I did post it on Facebook, and so some people I didn't know. We did it for people in Israel and Florida and California, all over the place. It ended up being really quite wonderful because I got to meet some new people and reconnect with people who we haven't been able to see, and it's been, for me, a really great learning experience.
Because let's not go there yet. Because of some of the different kinds of music that you were learning, you also said you were doing some klezmer music, I think, at some point.
Yes, so I've been studying klezmer music, which is music of Jewish celebration, and which goes back to about the 1700s in the Russian shtetls, where actually my grandparents came from. It's really some beautiful music. Let me play a short piece for you, a short klezmer piece.
That was great, Harold. Thank you. Hey, audience, I am also looking for how you express your creativity. I know Heidi said she likes to do lots of crafts. What about some of the rest of you? Share with us what you do for creativity. Okay, Harold. So you've learned a lot about different kinds of music. You've been experimenting with photography. What is your third way that you have dealt with creativity during this pandemic?
So the third, which relates to the other two, is just the aspect of learning. And so this is what I urge people who are over 50, over 60. I was just with a close friend who's nearly 80, and she was saying, "Oh, I can't learn new things," and I totally disagreed with that. This is a time when we can learn new things, and we can appreciate the world. You're not going to become a world-class pianist or violinist if you're taking up an instrument at this age, but you can still enjoy it, and that enjoyment is wonderful and can be very fruitful. So another thing that I've been studying a little bit is Stoic philosophy. And Stoic philosophy is very useful for getting through challenging times. So many of my posts about In Crisis Creativity are talking about how we can solve and understand our problems better. And the Stoic philosophy can really help us. There's a wonderful, easy way to get into Stoic philosophy on YouTube with a great guy. It's called The Daily Stoic. So you could take a look at that if you're interested. But one of the things in Stoic philosophy is memento mori, that to remember that we will die. So it sounds dreary, but it really is just a perspective building idea that compared to being cut off by someone on the road is not so bad. Compared to dying, having someone hang up on you on the phone is not so bad. That perspective is something that I learned a lot when I started volunteering at the hospital. I would see people who were in terrible shape and yet facing it often with courage and dignity, and that was a great lesson. And it's wonderful to see that sort of thing.
Yeah, so thanks. So I have a couple of comments here, Harold, that I'd like to delve into deeper. A few of the people that commented said, I have little artistic ability. I don't have a creative bone in my body. How would you address that?
So I understand when people think that, and it usually comes from early learning where someone in kindergarten was told, oh, you can't draw that pumpkin, you can't do this apple, and so I would I would urge people to throw that out instantly. Any ideas that you can't do anything. There are many, many cases of people who took up art later in life. Grandma Moses, of course, is a great example of someone who did very primitive yet beautiful art and became world famous. Not that that's even the goal, but to enjoy it is the goal. So simple and just enjoy it, because if we don't have things to do that we enjoy, like hobbies, art, whatever it is, I think life is far more shallow than it needs to be.
Yeah,
Something
and
that, go
so,
ahead.
sorry, I think creativity, when we think of it, we limit it when we think about art. Like Steve says, he loves playing with words. I like words. I like gardening. People like flower arranging. Some people are masterful cooks. All of that is creativity. So I think we
Absolutely.
limit ourselves when we say, oh, it's only about art. I don't have any artistic ability.
You are absolutely right, because being creative in the kitchen is wonderful. Being in the garden with flowers can be wonderful. So there's no limit really, and it's so important to find something that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be a passion, even it's just something that you enjoy. And even Winston Churchill, after World War I, had a nervous breakdown, I've heard, and he took up oil painting. Winston Churchill, we don't think of him as an oil painter, but it helped him to get through his very challenging time. And he even wrote a book about it. He wrote a
Mm-hmm.
book about oil painting because it became an important part of his life, and probably helped him to prepare him for the challenges of World War II, where he became such a great leader.
Yeah, I think expanding our creativity, it is a stress reliever, and maybe not if you're doing it professionally, but it's a stress reliever. It helps with creative problem solving. Anne says she's a creative problem solver. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that creativity enhances our lives, gives us a spark to life that if all we're thinking about is day to day, I have to, we can miss some of that.
Definitely. And hearing a wonderful piece of music or seeing a piece of art, seeing the light falling on leaves, these days, beautiful days in the fall, just appreciating the colors outside. You don't have to even create it, just enjoy what's beautiful.
Good
The
point. Good point. So did you always know that you wanted to be a photographer or a musician since the time you were young or
So I
younger?
grew up on a dairy and vegetable farm, and so I knew I didn't want to do that. That was not for me. But I just this morning I just had my teeth cleaned, and I was telling the hygienist that when I was like 8 years old and going to the dentist, I wanted the dentist light, the light that they have on the stand that they light up your mouth. I
Yeah.
wanted one of those. Because and I actually use one of those. I use something like that to in my studio to light some of my still life photographs.
Huh.
The So I always, when I was very young, I played with light bulbs and flashlights, and I'm still playing with those same things today.
Huh. So when you see something like some of your pictures, the nature pictures, some of them are Yale Law School and some of them are that robot with the bridge. So how can you, like, what is the creative experience for you?
So that's an important question because when, and this is good for people who aren't doing art actively right now to think about when musicians are in really good shape, they say, especially wind players, they say you have chops, like the muscles in your mouth are in good shape. And so when you're not doing art actively, to do something creative takes a little bit more patience and time and perhaps energy. Right now, because I've been so actively doing this, things pop into my head, luckily very easily. And I just am piecing things together right and left. And I have many, as I said, over 600 of these pictures and many that are in the wings waiting, for their time. Some of them, I instantly know what I want to say about them, and some of them take a month or two or three before I have the words to go along with the image. So, but some of them are instantaneous, very quick, and some take a long time for me to percolate the idea, and it's fine because I'll create something new.
And do you feel like sometimes you'll change it as you're thinking about the words? Do you change it?
Perhaps
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes things do. Sometimes if I come up with a new idea that relates to the image, one aspect I may enlarge, make it a bigger part of the image, if that's actually the aspect that needs to be more visually present.
Yeah. So interesting. So what happens now? Your work is starting to open up a little bit, I think, right?
Right. So my work at Yale School of Medicine and the law school occasionally, and the School of Management, it still is about 1/100th or 1/200th of what I normally was doing. I was doing often 3 to 4 assignments every single day, for years. I've been photographing at Yale since 1988, and so many, I've gotten some wonderful opportunities to meet almost all the Supreme Court justices, thought leaders in the management world and business and medicine. It's really quite wonderful. But most of the event type things are not happening. But I am doing portraits of people, which is still all, very fulfilling as well. So I'm still continuing working hard on my creative parts, and try not to let the work get in the way. The so But otherwise it's good that I have some work now. So it's a balance though.
So are you going to get to reset up your exhibit, do you think, of the musical instruments, luminous music?
So my exhibit, Luminous Instruments, my goal is still to exhibit that in musical instrument museums around the world. And I do have 4 images at the Yale Collection of Musical Instruments, which is a lovely small musical instrument museum. Unfortunately, they've been closed also since March of 2020. And so there are many of these museums. So if anyone out there has any ideas how to get into any of these wonderful museums, there's one in Brussels, Belgium, that I absolutely adore. I've been to a few times. That is a wonderful music. It's called the MIM, the Musical Instrument Museum. And that's one of my dream spots to exhibit these pictures and to give a lecture about what the images mean. And one time when I was working on the pictures, I was listening on YouTube to Leonard Bernstein, one of my artistic heroes, and he said, "Music is movement." And it felt like a wonderful message from him from beyond, because the images are all about movement and music. So that's my goal, though, is to exhibit those pictures. But I'd love also for Christ's creativity images to be seen. I have another photo project with instruments called Instruments in the Wild that I haven't shared yet with anyone, but I have many, many pictures of instruments outside on the beach and in the woods at night, in the daytime. So, and those are quite fun. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping to exhibit those as well.
That does sound like fun. So a question came in from Steve. He wants to know your thoughts on this. He says, everyone has a camera on their phone these days. And with social media, is it too much photography that's being shown from the amateurs?
So definitely not. The actually several years ago, when actually I think it was the year after the iPhone came out, I gave a lecture at an exhibit, and I had read that that year more pictures were taken on cell phones than had been taken in the entire history of photography.
Wow.
Since 1839. So so when people are creative with their cell phones, I applaud that. Cell phones are wonderful. The they You can do wonderful things, and it's a wonderful outlet for people, especially during COVID. Enjoy taking pictures with your cell phone. But if you really want to do something the next step level, with a real camera and processing the images, is really wonderful. It's a whole nother thing. It brings it to a level that you can be creative. And Ansel Adams said something that relates to this. He said the negative, which is like the raw digital file, is the score, but the print, the output, either digitally or a print, is the performance.
So
So
I
it's a
love this.
wonderful way.
Yeah, you're
It's a
tying
wonderful way of,
together.
yeah, it's a
No, you're
wonderful way to think about that.
yeah, because you're tying. I mean, with those two quotes that you just gave, that you're tying together the visual with the auditory, with the music, with the performance. That's awesome. Thank you, Harold. So, question for you. Excuse me. How has the crisis creativity, the flutograms, the learning, how has this changed you over the last year and a half?
So it's really opened up my ways of thinking about the world, my family, my friends. It's actually been it's brought a lot of happiness too. So it's made me happier being, so although the COVID pandemic has been horrible for the world, and in many ways we have to see when there is a bright spot from it. It's amazing. So for me, it has given me the time to be creative and to build up my artistic chops, and enjoy it more than I've ever had a chance to. So I hope that other people have had that opportunity as well.
Yeah, that's a great thing. Um, so I think people appreciate those artistic chops, and now hopefully you have more people that are going to be looking in on your Facebook page. And
Right.
um,
I have one more piece to play for you. I have
I
a
was just going to
piece.
ask you.
I have a piece by. This is the end of Mozart's beautiful Exultate Jubilate, which he wrote for soprano and orchestra. It's the closest thing to a concerto for soprano, singing soprano. And so this is the very end of the Alleluia movement.
Okay. Yay. Thank you. Thank you. When did you first start playing the flute?
So the flute I took up actually after high school, but I started on saxophone my sister Lenore showed me the fingers on the saxophone when I was in third grade, and in 10 minutes I knew every single note on the saxophone. And so I started on saxophone, which I still love to play. And before COVID, I used to play a lot in pit orchestras where I would play up to 6 instruments in a pit orchestra. And so I play
Wow.
bass clarinet and clarinet. I love the baritone sax and the alto sax the most,
Wow.
of the saxophones. And but the flute I took up when I was about 18 or 19, and I was a little bit more mature, and I really started to practice it and enjoyed really learning its history and working very hard at it.
Yeah, I can see that you're a lover of learning. So, the Hey Boomer show is about inspiring people that are over 50 to live fully engaged lives, to find ways to make a difference. And after this conversation, which has been really wonderful, Harold, thank you. I'm wondering if you have 2 or 3 takeaways that you would like to leave with the audience today.
So, to find ways to enjoy life, we don't know from day to day when we are going to end. Life could end for us. So enjoy life. Don't worry. One of the sayings that the Stoics have is premeditatio malorum, which could be looked at 2 ways. So one is we look at things in a negative way and we can really ruin our lives. So let's not torture ourselves with worry. So plan for problems, but don't worry about them, because actual worry does not remove the problem, and it only makes our life unpleasant, when it doesn't need to be. So try to avoid worrying, enjoy life, find a passion or a hobby, or just walk outside and enjoy nature.
Thank you. That's wonderful. So I've been sharing your website. I also want to tell people how they can reach you if they want to drop you an email to
Right.
ask you questions, or to tell you about how much they enjoyed your pictures, or to maybe tell you who they know that you can go exhibit your stuff in. So it's
Excellent. I appreciate that.
I know, that would be great, right? So Harold Shapiro photo at gmail.com. And one more time with the website, it's Harold Shapiro photography.com.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Harold, for all of that you have shared with us today. Let me just tell you about who's coming on next week.
Great. Thank you.
So next week, we're talking about Road Scholars, which is a not-for-profit travel organization for older adults. My guests are going to be Kelsey Perry, who is with Road Scholars, and Barbara Winard, who is a travel blogger and is an alumni and has traveled with Road Scholars. So that should be fun. So that obviously we've all kind of been limited in our travel, but the Road Scholar trips are picking up, but they had to do a significant pivot during the pandemic. So as a nonprofit, how were they going to stay in business? So I think that's going to be an interesting show. I hope you all will come back and join us for that. And thank you again for tuning in today. I know everybody leads busy lives, and this is a nice creative break to take on Mondays. If you would like to contact me, you can email me at wendy@heyboomer.biz. And remember, we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer.